Hi, this is the final video on the MS-20. I am late on this because I had sprained my neck and I'm still recovering, but let's jump right in. So we are focusing on the external signal processor. I'm going to try to route as many signals as I can just internally in the MS-20 itself, and if not, then internally in the Chronos. So starting out, let's patch VCO1 into the signal in. And I'm going to hit a key just to show you that it is a blank patch. And taking the output, throwing that into the input of the VCA makes it so we're only hearing the external signal processor right now because each jack can only take one input. So this input is now defeating the normaled output from the low pass filter and this whole signal path right here. So anyway, I have the signal level on 375, which is unity gain, says the manual. And anything above that is going to cause saturation, distortion, clipping. So to hear what that sounds like, if I turn it all the way down, by the way, you hear that we are only hearing the output from the ESP going up. We hear extreme clipping, and that's only happening internally in the circuitry of the MS-20. The CMT stuff in the MS-20, the component modeling technology, is pretty good. It's actually excellent. In an earlier video, just to go off on a tangent, I had shown that the white noise is actually the same exact white noise from the noise generator and oscillator 1. But if you were to try to do a similar phase cancellation after routing the noise through various jacks, like say the input into the low pass filter and then put that into the output here, then it won't create a perfect phase cancellation. So every signal path colors the sound in some way in the MS-20 because again, the CMT is mimicking all of that. Anyway, so we are clipping our waveform. We're hearing square wave. Jumping over to the oscillator section, if we were to switch to square wave, we hear no difference because the square wave is essentially clipped by default. It is still clipping the MS-20 square wave because of the shape of the MS-20 square wave is not a perfect square, but nonetheless, it's just to illustrate that every single waveform does clip that way, including the triangle wave. Something that is kind of neat is because of the nature of the square wave, pulse width, changing the pulse width won't, it'll be the same as if you were just kind of working with a regular square wave. So I mean, you can't clip pulse width any more than it already is clipped. Noise, of course, is just noise because, you know, all of the added odd harmonics aren't going to do anything since noise is, you know, all frequencies at equal amplitude. So it'll just be adding harmonics to all frequencies at equal amplitude, thus creating more noise. So noise is kind of the king of all waveforms. So anyway, the next thing that I want to do is patch the output into the input of the bandpass filter. And actually, I should have just disconnected it all before doing that. This jack is at unity gain by default, so it's not affected by the signal level. And this, we could get there by just going into the signal in, as you can see from the graphic of the patch panel. But if we just go straight in, we can then, we don't have to worry about our signal gain or anything, but let's patch the output of the bandpass filter now to the VCA input. And we just have access to a high pass and low pass filter in series, not in parallel, because that would create a notch. But anyway, hearing what this sounds like, you can actually hear that we are losing a lot of high end just from having it go through this signal path anyway. But what I was disappointed about when it comes to the bandpass filter is I couldn't use it as a kind of slew generator, but I did find another way to create a slew generator just to show you how. Take VCO1 and just go straight to the output, and then take the square wave and go to the input of the low pass filter, and then take the output of the low pass filter and patch it into the frequency of the oscillators. And now we go to the oscillator filter section. So we have our modulation generator, which is at a fairly slow rate, and it's a square. I'm taking the square wave output going into the low pass filter, and that's going to modulate the frequency of this oscillator 1. So here we have our external intensity. So now when I take the cutoff point, when I lower it and then thus take harmonics off of the square wave, I'm taking away what makes it a square wave and turning it into more of a sine wave. So we hear a gliding or a kind of slew generating effect. So that's pretty cool that the MS-20 does that. Now let me disconnect all. Next in line would be the CV out, and you want to take that and put that into the CV input of the oscillators. And again, that's going to defeat the normal keyboard output into the into VCO 1 and 2 CV input. And I have a combi set up where I have an initialized MS-20, which is going to serve as our EXI audio input, feeding this patch, and that's going to sound like this. Let me just make sure that, yeah, I initialized it. So anyway, the screen's going to look a little bit weird because of the way the screen recording is, but right now we have an initialized MS-20 feeding the CV of the program we were just on, and it's going to sound like this. Now so that is actually playing the program we were just on. I have the output of the initialized MS-20 going to nothing, and so it's only going into the input of the patch that we're just using. B5 is the highest note that it will track. Of course, you could use the octave shift and get higher than B5, but anything above B5 is just going to sound the same. So I was just going up the keyboard, playing notes, and they all just sound the same. Something that's interesting is that the pitch follower in the MS-20 is not polyphonic. I mean, how it couldn't really be polyphonic. It can only track the pitch of one signal. It's not like advanced technology like Melodyne, but even Melodyne isn't doing things in real time anyway. So if we play anything polyphonic, it won't know what pitch to track. So I'll just play a fifth here, and I'll just play a triad. And then again, it's just a C. So that's really cool for various effects and whatnot with the pitch follower, or with the CV converter, whatever you want to call it. Pitch follower is really rare. I think this is the only pitch follower I've ever messed with, ever. Usually envelope followers are pretty rare, but a pitch follower is just ultra rare. So anyway, moving on. Let's take the output of VCO 1, put that into the signal in. And let's look at the envelope out. So if I wanted to take an envelope follower signal and use that as a modulator, I could just patch that into cutoff, for instance. And that way, if I go to the oscillator tab and then take my cutoff all the way down and then do the external intensity up and then actually put resonance all the way up just to illustrate. Now, when I increase the gain of this oscillator, that's, what do I want to say, triggering or feeding or creating this envelope output, the volume will affect the oh, I have it into high pass filter. Let me disconnect, put it into low pass filter. The volume will affect the cutoff filter frequency. So you can see how that works. And if we wanted to, we could patch into A, and then put that output, and then have A at negative. And that way, when we increase the intensity, it'll create, let me just go all the way up, it'll create negative modulation, thus doing it'll close the filter with more volume. So it's really cool that these mixers exist in the MS-20EX at all. Such a great addition with just its ability to change the polarity on things. Last but not least, we have the trigger out. And let me put that into the trigger input of both. And I want envelope generated 1 to affect my initial gain, so I can change the settings for envelope generator 2. Let's give it some attack, some decay, no sustain, and I have my voice allocation set to envelope generator 1, and then I'll put cut off all the way down, and yeah, external modulation all the way up. And so now the envelope generator 1 or 2, sorry, envelope generator 2 will be triggered by the volume of whatever is being fed into the ESP. And you can change the trigger threshold. Oh, by the way, something I forgot to mention is with CV adjust, you'll always want this on 10. It's actually on 0 by default, but anyway, totally forgot to mention that earlier. So this threshold, if it's at 0, it's creating a higher threshold in order for the trigger to occur. So I believe it's on a key on, it will trigger the envelope normally. So let me just do a key on real fast. Envelope generator 2 is on full. Oh, you know what? On the patch panel. Yeah. That's right. Trigger out, the trigger in. Let me see. So I guess on key on it actually won't occur unless it's past a certain threshold. So if I go down below, you'll hear the sound kind of cut out if you have anything that can produce a lot of low end, because you'll hear the resonance stop. But anyway, jumping back up to 330, it'll trigger again. Oh, looks like 335. But if I take the signal level down again while the envelope is going through its stages, you'll hear it cut out, and that's actually just engaging a kind of the release phase. It's as if you're doing a note off. And since I have no release on any of my envelopes, it's just cutting the sound out immediately. The final thing to pay attention to is that the threshold, if you put it at 10, it's lowering the threshold point for the trigger out to occur. So it'll occur at, I think, 45 with threshold all the way up. Yep. Okay, that's everything. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. Hope you enjoyed it and got some value out of it. And next time, I think I'm going to work on a different synthesizer. Probably, I don't know, either AL1 or Mod 7. Just going over some things that I'm shaky on, because basically the only reason I do these tutorials is so I can get to be more familiar with not so familiar parts of synthesizers that I don't mess with that often, like the ESP, for instance. So I'll see you next weekend. Take care.